That is the change that wasn't even mentioned until here. Missing patch notes. The HP threshold for surviving a fall through the chasm in Sky Posia and in Layer 2 with every power above 15 is starting off at 50% at power 15 and it caps at 75% at power 20. They also did a change down below where anytime you get combat tagged, you lose 5% for every tag over 1. So if 5 people are attacking you at power 20, your void threshold will be 55%, with the lowest it can be at 40%, which is like, what, 8 people tagging you, right? Which, if you have 8 people on you, that is, yeah. So, let's actually delve into it. What exactly happened here and why did this happen, okay? So initially, there was a conversation it was set up from the fact that A, illusory realm was being removed, and B, what's it called? Inu did make a video talking about it, and so the conversation was brought up, right? It was brought up previously, but it was brought up previously in testers and devs. We talked about it. If 5 people really jumped in the depths before this patch, if people really wanted to kill in the depths, it wasn't that. You know what I mean? It wasn't that difficult. And so if you actually look at the video Inu was talking about, really a lot of it came down to when people would want to spin back, or they would want to 1vx, 2vx, right? 2v6, for example. They'd get one guy low, or they like hit a big combo on him, he starts getting nervous, he jumps away. And now they were unable to spin back because the ease of having many men made the thing is, the void escape option, it's available for all. So what ended up happening was the people who wanted to gank you had free reign completely, damn near, right? Free reign completely because many men were on you, right? Many men were on you, all right? The problem is that you fighting back is not even a question, right? The first thing you thought of was to run away, but the problem is that was also supported by 2 things. A, if you were fighting against 4 or 5 people, even if you managed to do some damage on one of them, they can jump in the void too, right? And if you look, actually, I'll find it here real quick. So there was a guy talking here saying the number of times I've gotten jumped by guilds just for all of them to book it to the void pit is insane. This is why the change was made. You're not making it to a pit at above 50% in a 5v1, but the 5 guys definitely would be if they got hit back and tried to dip. So they all just jump void at the first hand triple and live, which is true. The other thing as well is that previously people were also just able to realm you. Does that make sense? All right, people were able to realm you as well. And so I saw a lot of people bring up the point that now it feels impossible to survive a 5v1 when in reality it was already impossible. The change was more so made, well, as a whole for everyone to not necessarily have to not necessarily have as equal playgrounds, right? If that makes sense. But 2, there was a second thing, and this is actually where I think there needs to be a little bit more changes, right? It's very obvious that if you're on a PvE build, you stand no chance. Realistically, you stand no chance. Let me explain why, though, okay? It's simple. There's 2 major factors, right? Let's start off with I think the one that's not as big. A lot of PvE, and the one I think is actually on the PvE player a little bit, a lot of PvE players will solely dedicate their build only to PvE. You see what I'm saying? They won't have any just in case mobility mantras that will help them, you know what I mean? Like any more PvP / survival oriented shit on their build. But the second thing is not on the PvE player. This one isn't. I know a lot of people, and it's the first thing I bring up. Damage versus monster kits. In my opinion, that one is not on the PvE player. The problem is that now you can do something to take care of it, but I'll explain why it's not even really a thing anyway. Right? The thing is, a PvE player will always be wearing some sort of PvE kit on. The problem is that having a PvE kit on is so bad for PvP. It's terrible. It's like, damn, it's not wearing no armor, but you're really lacking. The difference between someone with 560 HP with 40% physical versus like 420 with 30 or 25% physical is enormous for survival. Very big. And on top of that, right, having that low health while potentially getting jumped always is just going to be a fat ass L, dude. It's going to be a fat ass L. On the flip side, PvP builds, right, you see what I mean? There's like such a big disparity. PvP builds, feel a lot worse doing PvE because they don't have that extra damage boost to push them through faster to the events, right? Which is also something I think is a big issue as well, right? And so I see it, this is my take on it. This Deepwoken is a PvPvE game, okay? The problem is I think that it's designed in a way that it's splitting the community very hard. A lot of people will categorize themselves in one or the other and ignore the other completely, right? People will be like, dude, this game's a PvE game, man. Dude, why are they doing all these changes to hurt PvE? Or on the flip side, dude, this is a PvP game, man. You only do PvE to do PvP. Come on, man. Dude, no one cares. It's like people are very stuck in one way or the other, when in reality, it's both. It's both, and I think Deepwoken should really accommodate itself to really, you know what I mean? Says, you guys understand what I'm saying? Main argument for removing DVM, that I think I am a big supporter in innate DVM. I am a big supporter in that, for sure. I think it would just be a lot easier if everyone has 40% DVM. And then on top of that, it's still a buff to PvE as well, technically, because you can have innate DVM and have high HP for PvP/PvE. While meanwhile, the PvP players can now engage in PvE on their PvP builds. Easy way to, you say the thing? The only build differences is really like the talents, brick wall, the certain mansion you pick. But I'll say this. I guarantee you, people will feel a lot more comfortable if they can run 550 HP, 40% Fizz, 40% Slash. I mean, Elemental against the PvP player versus having that trash as DVM gift for PvP. And so that is what I think is the big thing. I really hope that they do consider it. If not, I understand. But as long as this continues, you will always see such a massive divide between the communities. You'll see one side complain about something, the other side complain about a lot. Now, what I will say is I feel like PvE complains really hard when something happens on their side. Bro, PvP, you get your build gutted. A lot of people just have to like tee up, lock in. You see what I'm saying? PvE, niggas will complain for days on end. Because in reality, though, PvE I feel like is a lot more simple and a lot more. It's simple, but it's also like there's not much. You know what I mean? There's not much, and so PvPs do it the same. Not really. I feel like it's a lot less people as well. But PvE is so generalized. There isn't really much for them to do anyway. And so when the one thing that they're doing gets nerfed, everyone's like, brah. Because in reality, most PvE is like you're farming the same 2 or 3 things to get better DVM armor, better relics for another build. You see what I'm saying? That's PvE majority of the time. And so when you nerf PvE, you're not really nerfing their ability to necessarily, I'll say it like this. You're nerfing their ability to farm. You're inconveniencing their time to farm. Does that make sense? Because there's nothing really to do, people are super attached to fast, quick time to farm for things like relics, DVM, and loot. And anytime you interrupt that and slow it down by a bit, bro, what? Dude, why are they nerfing PvE, dude? Dude, because all PvE, a lot of people are attached to that grind, that constant bam rolling, that RNG. The grind, because it's directly what people are kind of doing for PvE most of the time. Some people do PvE for the thrill, like people who solo Deluvian on many builds, or for example speedrun. Alright, okay. But in reality, besides that, there's nothing really to push PvE players further, right? And so I think that's a big portion of what people have to understand. I know a lot of people hate on PvE players and say they're crybabies. Look, I understand where it's coming from. All right, I understand where the complaints are coming from. But as much as I understand where they're coming from, sometimes I think they're just unwarranted or not valid.
If y'all enjoyed the video, make sure to go click on these other videos, man. And I'll see you guys later. Peace.